we start recording.
Okay.
Okay.
So, let's see, we have.
Agenda possibly. Almost like for a real organization.
Okay.
Right, who?
Mark, who isn't here?
Yeah.
Like,
Yes. Sorry. Okay. My brain will wake up then.
yours. Okay. Michelle is sleeping. I think that's it. Is there anybody else that should be here? Apologies from here.
Yes.
We have nothing from Blue.
Hello. Chris?
Chris. This will be the other person. Okay. I guess we should wait for Mark. So if you were over here, you'd be visible, but if you're over there, cars, I guess you're where you are.
Yeah.
I mean, I also don't need my laptop, so if I can plug in my laptop, I can move over there. So
I did not bring any of my European power adapters to this meeting.
So I think I have a long extension on the cord as well. All right. So I think this is all of us that are going to be here. Yep. We have I don't know, we have some formal things to do, we have some informal things we could do. I guess just to start off with the formal bits, thanks to everybody for coming, sticking around, extending your day even further and extending it even further with the dinner, which involves half an hour of walking. So
Working out that.
yeah, probably good. We have some action items from the past of sending the Rory proposal to all steering committee meeting members, which was done. We have revising the call, which was done, and the call went out. It's good. We have starting an email discussion on beginning an informal group on unearthing funding of research software, which Tom Honeyman is starting. And if anybody wants to be involved in that, you should contact Tom. There's been some discussion of that in a couple of different breakouts here, working groups or ops or other things here. There was discussion about vision and mission for asynchronous discussions before this meeting. That's been happening in a document, and the document's in the notes. And then the final previous action was finding an ARDCer, which is very hard to say. It would be good in the advocacy toolkit context. And that was ongoing from Andrew. So I don't know if there's anything on that to say.
Yeah, we're still having discussions about whether we can get some of our policy people to take that on. They're being kind of slammed doing other stuff, but it's still on the list of things that Tom and I have not given up on. Okay. So if you don't mind keeping it open.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. And sorry, and just to check yours, you're still okay with sound?
Good.
Okay, that's good.
Yep. Reasonably well. Yeah.
Very good. Just
we'll speak up.
Yeah. You know, I'll just have to remember to talk that way as well. Okay, so then we have a few updates from Michelle. I guess the main, well, or one of the main ones is the new draft of the Amsterdam Declaration was out on maybe Monday of last week.
Cheers.
With really Joris doing probably the majority of the work, I would say, and Neil and I and Michelle helping out a bit.
Can I make a minor comment on that, or is that coming up on the agenda later?
No, go ahead.
So my comment on the new website, or the new form that we get for the declaration is that, how can I put it? it's possible I'm misreading it, but it seems like there's a mismatch between the email we got and the actual form. So the email we got said, you can register just to comment and you're not committed to signing, which is great. But when I go to the form, it says down the bottom, I confirm in blood that I have the authority to sign on behalf of my organization. And I would like to comment, and it's quite possible that I will be able to sign on behalf of my organization, but I haven't yet had the conversation with my CEO to say, hey, Rosie, this thing that you haven't seen and that we haven't briefed you on yet, can you just give me permission to sign the AIDCR? So I don't know how to solve that, whether you want to split the form or whether you want to, I don't know. But at the moment, I'm reluctant to fill in the form all the way down to the bottom at this stage.
I think that was raised in the group by a couple of people, yourself included, Dan. I guess the question is, has it been adequately resolved?
So I think so the email that went out with an earlier version of the website than the current version of the website.
Okay.
So I guess my suggestion would be see if the current website actually still causes you a problem. Yeah. And if it does, then please write back to us and say so, and we'll take it offline and
okay,
try
great.
to figure it out.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, it's changed 2 or 3 times because it started off in a state that was more confusing, and now it's probably less confusing, but it still may be a little.
But I may possibly be confused regardless. So, all right, I'll have a look.
I think I'm just looking at it just now. I think it addresses your main comment, but there's still one aspect that maybe you need to come from an organization to be able to fill out the form.
Okay.
But it no longer says you must
Yeah,
agree to
sign on
endorse
behalf
it.
of- yeah,
no,
okay,
so that's
yeah.
not there.
All right, great, thanks.
It's a brilliant URL though.
Adore.software.
Love it.
Okay, let's see, then other updates, the organizational members that we now have 2, Sage Publishing and NIH, which is good. So that's, I want to say $20,000. I don't know if that's exactly right.
Really?
But something like that, total, not each.
Yeah.
But still,
Sage may be smaller, and I think NIH is 10, but Sage may be smaller.
That's awesome.
So it's good. There's discussions with some others going on, NASA, DOE, DFG, FAPESP. I can never remember which way you say this.
for best.
Sometimes they say it with a P, actually. As well. Yes. But anyhow, so yeah, so if we can get another 3 or 4, then we'd be in reasonable shape to pay for some of Michelle's time on a more ongoing basis, rather than just a less ongoing basis. And there's a 2022 year in review document that is out, talking about everything RESA has done during the last year, which I think looks quite good to me. Kind of surprising to look back and see all the things that are listed there, I thought. And there are part-time community managers that have been hired in Africa and Asia. I don't know what the exact amount of time is. It's a small amount of time.
I think it's 1.5 days per month.
Okay. So, which is 5% time, roughly 7% time, something like that. So, yeah, not a huge amount, but better than nothing. And it seems like they are at least active, and I've seen some things coming out, so it's good. And the engagement plan has been updated, which I think was Michelle and Kim, maybe Kim leading on that one. So I think that also looks nice.
Can I kind of like just formally comment and say, actually, yes, I think we should be able to kind of reflect and say in 2022, it was a very successful year for RESA. It might be that we didn't feel it as we were going through, but I would say that RESA is in a much better state, both in terms of its outputs and activities, and also to a certain extent in its plans for a sort of sustainable future than it was at the start of 2022.
And I would add in its visibility. I think as an organization, it's, at least in the very niche group of infrastructure nerds that I move in, it's now better known, more recognized as having a role.
Yeah, it's got a good brand.
Yeah.
You put that in as a note.
It's good. sure Michelle will be very excited when she listens to this recording. Okay, so I think that's the updates. Then we have, we basically have three things to discuss that are all kind of linked together. So maybe we'll just mention them all and then figure out how to discuss them. And the intent is that we basically spend most of the remaining time on that discussion with a little bit of time for anything that anybody else basically wants to update us on. So the three things are the review of the steering committee nominations, which everybody should have access to. The questions about, I guess I would say, well, I think so I think that's kind of tied to two different things. So we have nominations of new committee members. We have status of existing committee members, some of whom have been less active than others. And the question is, do we do something with that? And then the other piece of this is the emails that have that Michelle sent and then Neil followed up with, talking about kind of how do we actually want the steering committee to work, or how do we want different committees to work that are kind of steering committee like, and who would we like to put onto those? So that's kind of, I think, all one discussion, but then tied to that a little bit is the question about governance of the Adore software, because depending on what kinds of committees we think of, maybe one of those committees would be responsible for that governance as well. So yeah, so I'm not sure how to start this.
Michelle's email's the most general, isn't it? Because that's setting up the structure, but we then need to think about how we relate that.
Yeah, I think that's certainly is one valid way of thinking about it. I guess the other way that sometimes happens to me when I'm thinking about people and jobs is you think about the job and then you try to find the people, but sometimes depending on the people, you change the job. So I don't know which way.
Can I suggest it would be useful to hear other people's thoughts, quite quick thoughts on Michelle's email, because I think it would be useful to get a sense of whether we're in rough consensus around what we need on the steering committee before we get to the discussion. But I also think we won't solve this. We won't come up with a perfect new governance structure for RESA in this meeting. So I don't want us to spend 30 minutes discussing email. But I've kind of basically said every other successful organization I've been on the steering committee for has essentially looked for people who bring skills and experience and some passion for the overall vision of the organization, rather than it being the representatives of the best people who are doing things in that area. It's kind of been a variety. It's not only been a third of those people are really good examples of people doing things. They're almost the service providers. And then the other people are lawyers, accountants, so on, who happen to be interested in the topic. That was my perspective for a steering committee versus a partner or stakeholder advisory board.
But you're recognizing the two different roles.
Yeah.
I think that's the crucial thing from Michelle's, for me, was the recognition that we've got a group of people, maybe we can start with people, and they have different expertise, and there's two different kinds of jobs to be done. I'm in favor of having two different themes, two different jobs.
So I was just gonna say, yours, maybe if you wanted to say anything, I kind of don't want you to always be last in discussions. So.
Well, don't worry about that. But I can hear the discussion well. So thanks. No, I like the distinction between the steering committee with slightly different kind of people with respect to an advisory committee, where you have more immediate stakeholders, perhaps, who are more knowledgeable on the topic in some respects. Although I wouldn't populate the steering committee with lawyers and what was the other thing Neil mentioned, because they might be too remote from knowledge of the core business of RESA. But having said that, I like the division. I also like Neil's division, which he sent on just I think an hour before this meeting, which kind of makes a fourfold division. But okay, that is something we won't solve today. But thinking in terms of a steering committee and advisory committee is something, that would fit. It's something that occurs often in this kind of context.
So I guess I would add that Probably on the steering committees. I haven't seen Neil's email until now. I'm just quickly skimming it. Probably on the steering committee, you might also want people who are more focused on the longer term strategic direction of the organization rather than the more tactical and operational stuff. And again, depending on how you see the organization developing, you might be interested in pulling in people who can act as connection points to other organizations or bridges to other relevant organizations. So, you know, Dan, you come with a connection into Force 11. I come with a connection into IDA, as does Mark. I think Mark is probably got a much more useful connection to IDA than I do. So some of that might be relevant as well.
I mean, I agree with everything been said. I think it's a sensible evolution. I'd be tempted to not necessarily have to think about that while we look at the applicants for ostensibly for the steering committee.
Yeah.
Because we may be moving folks around. I realize it's important to have a sense of that, but I think we should just pick the people that represent additional diversity and roles and the things that we're to some degree missing. But otherwise, yeah, I have no issues with Michelle's suggestion and comments that have been made. I think it's a good idea.
I guess just to kind of boil this down slightly, if there was a steering committee and some other committee, which of those do you think you would be on?
So one's a steering and one's an advisory.
Well, I'm
let's
worried
say
about the names actually. So
Yeah.
one is in trying to make sure the organisation is well connected and continues to exist. I think the other is actually doing stuff the organisation is supposed to do.
Yes.
Yeah, the champions or I don't know what
No,
you want to call the other one. But
So here, I think there's probably three things here. So there's the people who are doing the work, and then there's two groups that might advise. And I think in the distinction I made, which I think follows Michelle's distinction, is but I tried to categorize it as the people who are bringing skills and experience that are about the future growth and path of research and achieving that.
Yeah.
And then the other group of people are the group of people who are effectively ensuring that research is meeting the needs of its stakeholders.
Sure.
So yeah, so for instance, for me, I think that at present, I'm in the first group because of the skills I bring in terms of other organizations and connections, but I would probably transition to that second group at a certain point in RISA's evolution, which hopefully would be relatively soon. I think I would transition as soon as we had an understanding of what's required from our steering committee, effectively. So once I felt confident that, in some sense, I feel like I am an interim steering committee member in this setup until the point I transition to.
yeah, we don't have to do the
Yeah.
split immediately.
Yeah.
We
No,
can
no,
say
agreed again, but I'm just,
yeah.
I'm kind of trying to use this actually as a little bit of a function just to explore the idea.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we're making everybody think about themselves.
In some sense, there needs to be one person like me, representative of the sort of organization and role, I think, on the steering committee. There does not need to be 8 of them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would almost say I'd go where my role and connections and things are best utilized. Like I would be happy in either context. I wouldn't have any strong opinion as to where I should be. I would probably put myself on the bench to be allocated where the new members that we kind of decide on suggest.
Yeah, and so for me, Michelle's email was triggered by an email that I sent to her because it was just a question I was asking her, which was essentially I'd looked at the matrix that had been drawn up, and people quite correctly said Yeah, Tom would be great, but he overlaps too much with Andrew. And I was suggesting to Michelle, well, there's an obvious solution to that problem. Sorry that I stepped down, but as Michelle quite correctly pointed out, well, we're going to have an election. There's no guarantee that Tom will necessarily be elected. Anyway, I'm not sure. I can think of lots of people who provide more value to RESA than me, and I do not want to get in the way of those people potentially joining.
I've got a similar point of view to that. About the last part. I think of the two things, I probably did better in the first one, which is about building an organization, connections, processes in the organization, stuff like that. Rather
I feel like I'm having a 10-year flashback.
it is a bit like a 10-year flashback.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be.
Joris, did you have any comments on this?
Yeah, I think I would follow what Mark and Andrew just said. I mean, for me, it would be important to just be useful wherever, in whatever part of RESA I would be active. Of course, I'm the ones, and that's another agenda point, who doesn't attend all the meetings. I've tried to compensate for that in other ways, but you know, that's just to be, again, to be useful. So I don't really have a very strong opinion as to where I would be in a future RESA. The thing I've been trying to represent insofar as I'm looking at you all in this room, I mean, there's so much diversity there. You'll agree with me, but I've tried at least to some kind of geographical or linguistic diversity, since I speak from a slightly different context. But that's the only thing I've been able to bring in that sense. But
Well,
we could do something about this now with the different people who have applied, right? So.
Especially with Kim off camera, we clearly also need a bit of gender.
Oh yeah, that was
We're actually doing quite well in
Age
geographic
diversity.
diversity.
I guess for the folks that aren't here.
yeah. We may
Geographic weight.
have overachieved on the balding grey-haired
Yeah.
male. Whatever.
Okay, well, let's leave this for the minute, because as Neil said, we're not going to come to a decision here, but I think at least we have some thoughts.
We're
And I guess
favoring
what's-
two bodies.
It seems like, well, at
It
least
may even be two bodies and some individuals with roles, like this champion thing. It's not really a body of champions, maybe it's some individuals who
Right.
So should we look at the people that are here on the other document?
apologies, I didn't get a chance to read them properly. I did skim them, but not well enough to have an opinion.
And I should say that I didn't do the kind of textual notes that some of you did in the ranking document, but in my sheet, I've done some kind of crude categorization by the role people play and career stage they're in, what language and gender diversity they might bring to the organization.
Right. And I guess I have to say I'm not completely sure of the process here, because like, your comment was Tom might not be elected.
Yeah.
I don't actually know that we're having an election.
Oh well,
So I'm not sure quite what our process is, and if we've come to any agreement on that.
we may not have. I mean, I'm happy to do a tag team swap out for Tom.
My assumption was we were gonna select the list of preferred, candidates based on a general estimate of the numbers we would want if we're going with the two-body approach.
Okay,
It's quite consensus.
Yeah, that's what I was.
We'll just talk and
I was kind of
decide.
thinking that as well.
These
'Cause I-
look like really great additions, and maybe we could one or two that don't. And I can say that without just having to get through that.
Because I don't know who would elect. Would be the main issue.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay, that's fine.
And am I right in saying that we have no lower or upper bound on the numbers?
I don't think we should at this point.
Yeah.
I think again, it depends. If we're putting everybody together, then there probably is some upper bound. But
Yeah.
if we're dividing people up, then probably we don't have an issue. Okay, so I'm not sure how best to do this either. I guess we could just go through people in order in this ranking sheet.
Yeah, so if I flick back to a previous career of mine, one way we tackled this kind of problem, although that was in student selection into a degree course, was clearly in, clearly out, what we used to call the middle band. And I think there are a number there who are clearly in for me. Maybe one or two who I think we could possibly say not yet. And then we can maybe have a discussion about the ones around the middle. Or if there's no numerical limit on the number, we might just say, everyone who's in the middle band, we could say yes to.
Yeah, I generally like that approach. It's the approach I would use if I was chairing a research funding panel or something similar. The only thing that I would say is that of the clearly in people, we might want to check again at the end to see whether there are any challenges to do with an over-representation of any area.
Or underrepresentation.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Good point.
Okay. So if we were to say clearly in, I mean, just looking at the average scores, it seems like that would be definitely Yo and Tom. And then there are some people that are pretty close, and I'm not sure which of them we might consider in that category, if any.
I mean, I would have thought anybody under 1.5 would be in the clearly in category for me. Modulo Neil's comment about doing a diversity check.
9, did you say, Andrew?
1.5. So for me, that would be Yo, it would be Anne Quill, Shuri Ozu, I'm mangling her name, my apologies to her. Tom noting the comments about too much overlap with me. Yeah, those.
That's 3.
Okay, sorry. So Tom, Yo, and you said?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Shuri. Shuri.
Does anyone have any disagreement with any of that? Did I say anything, even if it's not disagreement, just comments?
Yoris didn't intake a breath.
Well, this seems to be based on a that's always what you get when you do things by numbers, right? I mean, the criteria by which people judged or put their numbers in the Excel are very different. At least that would be my suspicion. So I mean, what exactly are we comparing here? That would be the question.
I guess that's the reason I was kind of trying to use this maybe as a proposal, then asking if people had comments that they wanted to bring up about.
Yeah.
Why, about any disagreement with this categorization or any other comments?
I mean,
Because we have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, one thing I mean, that's just for the discussion then. One thing that we might want to consider is somebody with an early career or at an early career stage. Yeah. Because I mean, whether this would in the end up in an advisory, a committee or a steering committee, that's something that probably needs to be decided then. But you do want to have a proper representation, right? And this is also another aspect of diversity. What I see a lot happening in this kind of committees is that there is always somebody who represents the PhD community or who represents the postdoc or early career community in a different way. And that might make sense. So there are 2 candidates here, right? Oriel Abril-Pla and Alyssa Columbus. And I mean, I'm not really concerned as to who that would be on this list, but at least if you would have one representative from that kind of group, that might make sense. Otherwise, you get a lot of over 50s people talking about the rest, and that is not something that would be,
I was just going to say, I would add to that, Yobub Adam looks, when I went and looked at his CV, looks like an early career researcher. Oriol Abril-Pla, I agree, is early, but early career infrastructure person, not early career researcher. We may care about that distinction. And Shuri looks like she's also early career, kind of just out of the first postdoc.
Yeah, what I was going to say is that of the 4 initial candidates that Dan has kind of grouped in there, I would say that overall, the thing that I would say around career stage is that would lower that would kind of move the average career stage down. Although there are people there who are probably on the border between early and mid or firmly in mid, the fact still remains that from that perspective, which I think is a great one to take, Joris, I would feel quite happy with that group of 4 because it is moving the
average
balance
down.
of the career stage down. So that's a plus for that. I would also say that in terms of the kind of gender diversity, it's improving our committee. And I guess most importantly, it has people who add a generally speaking, a relatively varied set of skills there. I would say that perhaps there's a bit of overlap between Yo and Anne on the training side, and a bit between Yo and Tom and Anne on the what I'd call the sort of research software policy side.
Okay.
So those are so there is maybe a little bit of overlap between those 3, but broadly speaking, I would be quite happy with that set because they do seem to broaden the set of skills and networks on the steering committee.
And who was that again? Yo?
This is the 4 top ranked people. Yo,
the 4
Tom,
top, okay.
and
Shuri and Anne.
Yeah.
And they're also in the ranking sheet. They're the ones that are a brighter green now.
Yeah.
If it-
The only thing that they don't bring is much additional geographical diversity because they're coming from places that effectively are already well represented.
Yes, agreed.
So that is something that I would say we should consider in the next set down.
Where's Alyssa coming from?
It's a Columbus,
US?
yeah, US primary language English. And clearly early career.
So got some bright green ones now. Is there any at the other end that you say actually I'm kind of not heard a single negative out of an open. So is it the case that we've got the role for everyone? Or not? We just have to find what the right role we want.
Because there's 9 current steering committee members. There's 13 on the list. So that's 22. Might lose a few
Yeah.
steering, so
We could be 20. There could be 2 committees with 10 each. So
it's not a bad number. I mean, Caxton is engaged, has been engaged in a number of contexts. Is at the Research Software Funders Workshop. Yeah, it's hard to say there's somebody there that you would
Yeah, but
drop right off.
I think that we should here be considering who are we wanting to invite to the steering committee, because that's effectively the point of this agenda item. I agree that basically I would find it difficult to find people. There's maybe 1 or 1.5 on the list who I'd say I would at least want a further conversation with them before inviting into a role with RESA.
Okay.
But I think there's maybe a better distinction to be made about who would we invite onto the steering committee of RESA.
And you can cover that both ways round. You can say who's naturally fits in the other.
Yeah, because so for instance, the ones that I am kind of going on the steering committee a little bit. One would be Oreo, because I think they have a really great idea of the sort of the why they want to do it, which is really good to see. So it sort of aligns with the vision. But I don't yet get a good idea of what it is that they bring in terms of the skills, experiences, and networks that would help RESA grow. And that's being a little bit harsh because effectively they're much earlier career.
Yes.
But on the other hand, that's the reason perhaps why we should be looking to see what role. So I would say that Oreo was someone who definitely should get a place somewhere in I don't know how Michelle put it, but it was basically kind of like recognition that this is a valuable person for RESA.
Mhm.
But for me, they feel like it's not necessarily a good fit with the steering committee. And then there was someone else who I think was one of the ones who was nominated rather by someone else. Can't find it, sorry, this is harder to do on my phone than I thought it was. Who I didn't really get an understanding of why they were interested in RESA's vision, basically. And
Yeah.
therefore, I think they're not, even though they bring valuable experience.
Angelique, I think.
Yeah, Dan's comment was that Angelique didn't say why she wanted to be.
Yeah, Neil, so Neil, if you want your laptop, you can have my power. Which will reach where you are.
Or actually, my laptop might have charged.
Okay.
I'm fine now, so.
I mean, it would be nice to have at least one early career on the steering committee.
Yes, agreed.
Oriole meets that. As does Alyssa.
Yeah, so actually maybe, sorry, just to do this in a slightly different way. So Oriole. Okay, so I'm just between all of us, Oriole got pretty bad scores with the exception of Mark, who was really liked Oriole. So kind of why, maybe you could say a little bit about why there's something that we missed.
I would have to look.
And Andrew as well was.
Yeah, I gave Oriole a 2.
Oh, I think it was, is she the Our Ladies one? Or is that Angelique?
Oriole is working on open source software. but-
Yeah, non-focus.
Well, but it's not, it means funded by NumFocus and CZI. It doesn't mean working
Oh,
to
okay.
benefit CZI or NumFocus, just working on a project that's funded by them.
Similar to me, I really like working on research software, and I believe in the RESA mission.
Yeah, I think I was just impressed with what she said and what she's working on, and early career being a key for me in the ranking.
Okay.
Was also location. Spanish speaking, I mean, we have
I'm pretty sure Oriole's male, female.
oh, really?
I have no idea.
I think I had them categorized in my spreadsheet as male. So I'm presuming went to
Well,
Not a
let's
name
go
that I
to
can guess.
their link.
their link from memory was unhelpful. You have to go searching elsewhere.
Oriole appears to be male.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Yeah. Oh, not that Oriole. Not the Spanish actor, I see.
Right, so
Yeah,
guess,
I wouldn't take my scores as
I mean, so I guess I'm going to be a little bit negative here, not specifically Oriole, but just in the process.
Yeah.
And say that I don't think that everybody that applied needs to get a consolation prize. So I'm not, I mean, recognizing people is fine, but I'm not sure why we would be recognizing Oriole compared with all the other people that work on a bunch of open source projects other than that he applied.
Oh, yeah, and that's why I think if we had a scheme, if we had a different sort of scheme, so something similar to fellows or champions, we would encourage them to apply for that. But because we don't have a scheme like that, I would suggest that we note their interest and get specifically back in touch with them if we do have a scheme that better suits.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not sort of saying like, well
Okay, I
done,
didn't-
you. No. So I'm kind of going the other way around. I'm suggesting that I don't think that they are suitable for the steering committee personally, but that they might have a very good potential role in RESA in the future. I'm not suggesting that we identify and sort that out right now.
Okay.
I think we should be focusing on giving a set of steering committee members to invite and induct.
So Anne was the one who was nominated by somebody else?
I think there were a couple. So Anne was not the one that I was thinking of.
Yeah, the other thing I was gonna say, sorry, with respect to my ranking, I mean, I ranked Yo, Anne, Oriole, Angelique, Tom, and Alyssa all the same. But I don't think I ranked, like, in my own ranking, I didn't distinguish Oriole from Anne or Angelique, I just did them all the same way.
What was your sort of background reasoning on that?
For giving them all a one?
Yeah.
Oh, it varied from, again, I was trying to, early career was a focus for me. And gender and potential for active involvement. So I had and they didn't all necessarily tick the same box.
So I'm, as you might have noticed, I moved Oriole to be red.
Mhm.
I'm
fine with that.
just doing that. I mean, we can move them back to something else. I'm just trying to move us through a process.
Yep.
I don't know if there's anybody else that would go into that category or not.
Yeah. Other than the African connection, LSE Jofsia didn't compel me.
I think that's the person I was trying to find who I think had been nominated by someone else. And my overall feel on that was that they're actually a good fit for the skills that they might bring, but I don't get a sense that they actually passionately want to be part of the recent steering committee. And that's actually a really important thing if you're joining a steering committee, is you actually want to be part of it.
Yep.
So
Pretty consistent low ranking. I mean, it's not like there's a couple of ones that got the rest of the threes into the middle. So I would move the LSE to the rear.
the one thing that I felt that they brought was the link to outreachy, but that might be potentially something that other people, because for instance, I know that Yo has worked a lot with outreachy as well. So there may be other.
The outreachy person also was, I can't remember their name. But they were at the lighting workshop as well, I think. Because I currently am trying to get some outreachy interns working. So I think we could reach out to outreachy directly without having something specific.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess. So just kind of just looking at these again, kind of in maybe in inverse order at this point, then Nicholas comes up, who has kind of a relatively high score, but also has kind of interesting comments. Kind of the comments are more positive than the score.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I heard what I remember about Nicholas's was the only one from Latin America.
Yep.
It's true.
Mid-career researcher, Portuguese background, Portuguese language background.
I would almost put them in the amber, or however we're doing the middle ground. Otherwise.
Well, we might just leave them in whatever color that other color is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, they sort of ranked okay, but that's partly because I can see other people who cover almost all of the sorts of skills and so on that they represent further up my rankings, apart from the fact that they are the sole kind of like Latin and South American representative. So therefore, I would be happy for them to kind of be part of it, to increase our geographical diversity in the absence of other candidates at this point.
We don't have anybody else from America. That's steering, do it.
Okay, so maybe we leave Nicholas in this category for the minute. We talked about Caxton very briefly. Any other comments on him?
I mean, I agree with Joris's comment on Paxton.
Yeah,
He's
I don't-
more senior policy in Africa.
I know Neil and I met him in Leiden. I don't know if anybody else has
Yeah,
met
I
him or
did.
not.
No. I've had a couple calls with him since then
Okay.
as well. High level policy, government, national, Pan-African.
Good candidate for the steering committee.
Yeah.
So that would be my comment in sort of opposition to Joris's, although it's maybe the same because we're both saying motivation is good.
Yes.
Here I'm arguing that you don't need to have much experience with software if you bring other really
Yeah.
valuable skills. And the two things that I think Caxton brings are he's already very engaged with research, and that means that he has an interest in working already. And secondly, he knows how to grow a network. And that's actually possibly one of the key skills that we're looking for.
Strong connections in Africa, more so than the other representatives from Africa.
Okay, so just continuing to work down in numeric order, Melissa. Melissa, stay in this middle category as well.
Alyssa would be my choice for an early career person. I
On the
think.
steering committee.
Yeah. If we were sort of saying, and I kind of like, I don't want it to be that we only have one, you know, you have the early career representative. I would prefer to be able to kind of like, diversity is not one person, diversity is the steering committee as a whole.
Yeah.
So I would prefer to see career stage being nicely smeared. But I was kind of looking at the application and I just went, this is someone who writes really good applications. I need to get them in to basically buff my CV. So from a theoretical CV point, I was looking at that and going, you're exactly the type of ambitious early career person that I'd be interested in hearing from.
Okay.
I'm also kind of the sort of person going like, but because I don't know you,
Yeah.
I'm a little bit wary, but that's more just my own prejudice than anything else. So I thought it was very impressive.
So Andrew, you had the worst ranking of her.
Yeah, and I think it's probably because I think it was because I was doing my scoring on the assumption that we were looking for steering committee representatives and you wanted someone with a degree of gravitas. Having said that, I agree, having listened to the conversation, that there would be value in having quote, a young person's perspective, close quotes. You know, that kind of early career, these are the people whose lives we're trying to improve perspective on the steering committee. And I think I would rescore her if I were doing the score now.
You certainly could. You don't have to keep what you put before if you want to change it.
She would stay in that category or move to the shocking green.
Got to do the Anderson actually.
Then kind of along with Alyssa at the same score was Yagu, probably mispronouncing.
Yeah, I honestly didn't get a sense of what your group would bring.
Yeah, I agree.
So for me,
For the Midland.
the kind of key thing here is that H3A Bionet is a successful kind of Pan-African network. However, there is already a relatively the one bit of diversity we've not really talked about, and I'm aware that Joris is listening in on this, is disciplinary diversity. And so we've generally got quite a lot of people who are coming from the physical and computer sciences and the bio and life sciences. This is another example of a really good biosciences network. And yeah, so I ranked them a 2, and I think that's because I'm on the fence in that if they were a candidate, this is my kind of thing. If I was chairing, I'd be saying this person is fundable, but there are probably other projects higher up the ranking that would give the equivalent results that this person would. So it's kind of, I kind of look at it as right in the middle. This person is eminently okay for the steering committee, in that they bring things, but other people that we've ranked higher bring between them the same things. That makes sense.
Makes sense to me. I don't know, yours, and certainly just feel free to jump in if you have anything to say. But
Yeah.
on this one in particular, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, thanks. Well, no, I've been following the discussion. So, I mean, to catch up, I agreed with the comments that were made about Caxton and Alyssa earlier. And I mean, with Neil's awareness about Alyssa, you know, she has a very strong pitch. Will of course be lessened if we talk to these people, right? That was a suggestion earlier at some point. So yeah. And I guess the same would apply to Adam Yacoub, who we're talking about now. I actually, I mean, I gave a high score, but that was because I was also on the fence somehow, and you know, I wanted to kind of bring some order to my scores in general. And that was before Neil started cheating by giving people a half extra, right?
Sorry.
Which is probably what I would have done if I thought I would be allowed to. So, yeah.
So I've been changing the colors a little bit and going with this kind of faded green for the people that we've talked about and seem to be kind of in favor of, even though they're in this middle category. And I kind of want to say for Yacoub that would be in this kind of pinkish color of people in the middle that were slightly less in favor of. But I'm not sure if that's just me saying that or if I'm hearing that.
I mean, so despite everything I said, the thing I would say is that if we don't have a bound on the number of people, then I would support having the conversation with Yacoub and seeing and inviting them on, because whilst I say that everything, you know, that the qualities that they bring are also represented by people who I've ranked higher up, that's not to say that we don't already have quite an imbalance in diversity on the steering committee, which adding more people coming up from other areas and categories would not help. So I'm kind of just going, this person is lower than some of my other people, but I think it would still be a positive addition to the team.
Just to
Confusing
clarify
yourself.
the process after the day, we select the yays and nays. Do the yays then come in, or do we talk?
No,
we talk to
I don't-
them and then make.
Yeah, I think I mean, okay, sorry. So I shouldn't say this. I should say my suggestion would be that we provide this to Michelle and let her come up with a suggestion about how to go for, well, not a process necessarily, but a suggestion about what to do next.
Yeah.
I mean, that might be
and
have these people in this category and have these people on the steering committee, have these people on a different group.
But I suppose I'm wondering if there's anything like an informal, like a conversation. Does somebody talk to them at the chat just to make sure that they are what they think what we do?
Yeah, the
It-
kind
it
of
seems like-
let's go and have a cup of coffee somewhere equivalent you're doing. real
Yeah.
life. Yeah.
I mean, so I guess I kind of feel like that could be Michelle, or it could be Michelle and me. Not quite sure
Yeah, yeah.
what my role should be going forward either. So
I think someone should, because you can't really tell.
And-
And some of them are known to some of us, but you know.
Okay.
for
And it
those
kind
that
of
we
would be quite useful to do it with everyone to confirm that they understand the commitment that we're looking for them.
Yeah.
So I suspect what we're looking to do is we're looking to kind of say, these are the people we would definitely want that conversation to happen with a feeling that if everything was acceptable on that, then, and we're not interviewing them, we're not saying yes or no, it's more just a understanding what, in more detail, what their interest is.
Yeah.
Then that they would be joining. And then perhaps there are some where we're going, this is not the right role for you, and saving them for later.
Yeah, sounds good.
We do have one more that we didn't talk about very much, which is Angelique.
Trustler, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. So for Yagub, I changed from a pale red to a yellow to be somewhat more positive.
The global south would be good.
Carpentries.
Scaling.
Yeah, that was my reasoning for one, is just there's someone who's already involved in scaling across the global south, therefore tapping into their experience could be very useful for us.
So she'd be in the middle leaning in category.
Yeah,
But
with
if
the
we,
dirty greens.
yeah, if we wanted, I mean, that certainly would be okay. Again, the fact that she didn't really say anything about Lisa was the thing that bothered me, but we could go through that in the conversations. Okay, so we'll do that greenish color. All right. So having done this, then we end up with kind of 4 that we seem to be relatively sure we'd like to get involved in some way. 4 more that we're pretty sure of. 1 that we're less sure of, and 2 that we're kind of sure we probably don't want to at this point. Yeah. Does that seem reasonable? Are there any thoughts on anybody that maybe we put in the wrong category? Doesn't compare well with others or compare better than others?
I guess for simplicity, I wonder whether we should just move Yagub Adam to the dirty green color rather than having this slightly
Special
confusing
category.
why do we have this one person sat in one extra color?
Yeah.
Mostly because I'm still negative, but
Okay. No, I mean,
I
like,
don't know.
if that's the case, then
I'd leave it that way.
No, that's
Yeah,
fine. I
yeah.
don't think I have a good reason to be negative, so I think what you're saying probably is right. I didn't think that way originally for some reason. I'm just thinking that way today. And I don't know why, so, okay.
What is, how am I going to chair all of these new additions?
No, that's fine. Okay, so I guess then just looking at these again, maybe the thing that I'd like to do is, Andrew, when you looked at them, you kind of categorized them differently. Just wanted to see if we kind of went back to your categories, how the selection would look if we missed anything.
I think, so I was interested in whether we're going to end up with a blend of linguistic diversity, gender diversity, career stage diversity, and role diversity. With by role, I somewhat arbitrarily said they're primarily a community role, a practitioner role, a researcher role, or an infrastructure role. And if we go with Neil's argument, which is that we're trying to increase diversity in general, rather than coming up with some perfectly balanced group of people across all the possible diversity categories we could think of, then the selection that we currently got will clearly increase our diversity on all of those dimensions. Career stage, role type, language, and gender. We could probably come up with other combinations that would increase the diversity more, but I don't think that's a compelling reason to fiddle with the rankings.
Good to hear about the role type, because I wasn't sure whether that would be the case, but it's good to hear that.
What language was CA?
Canadian?
Canadian, obviously. Canadian French, I think, is what I
Okay.
categorize that as. Just trying to be picky here.
That was the person who's in Spain.
Oh no, sorry, Obril,
Catalan.
Catalan, sorry.
Okay, I see.
Sorry,
Okay.
I wasn't looking at yes. Yeah, I was using the standard ISO 2 letter language codes, and that's Catalan. Which is why I sure use you as je, because that's Mandarin Chinese words. Chinese.
Okay, so is everybody reasonably okay with this then?
Yep.
Yours? Yes, okay, sorry.
Thumbs up, good.
Homer Simpson with an extra finger, thumbs up, good. Okay. So that's good. I'm going to close that document in a minute. Okay, so then in terms of Moving on in terms of the governance of DoorDot software.
I just
Yes.
provide a piece of information before we dive into governance.
Yep.
The reason I nicked out earlier was to check when the cloakroom closes.
Yep.
It closes in 14 minutes. So if you have something you would like to retrieve.
Okay, well, we're
Just
gonna,
take a break.
we're gonna need to leave in about 10 minutes as well.
Oh,
So-
okay, fine,
So I
right.
think that should be fine, but if you want to get something quickly.
No. If we're going to leave before the cloakroom closes, that's fine.
Things we have to leave before six.
I have to
Yeah.
run up and grab my coat from my room.
Okay.
Should I do that now?
Yeah, I feel like
Yeah,
I just
really,
dragged you
Yeah,
out of the meeting.
I
now,
think,
but I didn't
I mean,
want to
so
sell.
it depends on if you want to come, if we're all going to walk together or if we're going to go separately. So
Yeah, I would prefer to work together, so. Maybe I'll go grab it.
The
Okay.
very late leaves at like 6.
Okay.
It's pretty
So we take-
regular though.
So if
right?
you're, I guess, Mark, so if you're doing that, maybe, yeah, if
Yeah,
you've got stuff
that's
in
what I
the
want.
cloakroom, let's get it and then.
Break
we'll
for
come
coat
back.
retrieval.
Yeah.
I still want to get stuck without the coat.
Yeah.
I'm receiving.
It's supposed to be dry.
It's a bit of a walk, which is why.
Yeah.
But some people might, there's a couple extras.
Okay, and I think if we're slightly late, it's not gonna be the worst thing. I don't think they're gonna give it away.
Oh, my God.
Payday, actually, I had a nice dinner last night, but it was incredibly expensive.
Where did you go?
It's a fish restaurant. With a couple of other people from MCSA and people that are at the HPC event, basically. It was, I don't have so we ended up, like, everybody paid individually because we're all on different things in some sense. My part was 900 crowns. It's like $90 US. I think mine was by far the cheapest.
I just realized that we had apparently been allocated 10 minutes for that discussion in the agenda.
No, it was from 10 to 50, so it was, I think it was supposed to be 40 minutes. Yeah.
We haven't.
I don't know, I mean, since there's three of us here that were involved in the
Yeah.
Adore software, is there anything that we want to suggest to the others when they come back?
My personal feel is that I don't think it should be the RESA steering committee, but I think that the RESA steering committee should have representatives because I would feel uncomfortable because RESA is not a funders forum for it to be that. So I feel like there has to be someone representing a funder on the governance of Adore. Don't know what you think, Joris.
No, I agree. So the suggestion that Michelle wrote up, should we aim for a separate structure governed by signatories with representatives from RESA seems most logical. The question then is which organizations would then be asked, right? Because it's something like a chicken and egg discussion. I'm not sure when people are supposed to sign. They can sign anytime between now and the end of the year, I guess. Although now is still the discussion stage.
Yeah.
But at some point, you would want people who have actually signed to also do the governance.
And maybe that's part of it is that there's almost like an interim governance that is in place where I guess what do you call them? People who are steering this process towards the formal finalized governance based around some of the funders we know are more who are warmer towards this.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Almost like a shepherding. group or
Yes,
something?
that's the word. I'm steering, shepherding.
Okay.
Yeah.
A shepherding committee.
Okay, well, let's wait for Andrew and then, well, maybe Mark, and we'll see if we can do that. I mean, I think that seems reasonable to me. I guess I do feel like it would be good for there to be some kind of representation. I guess, I mean, just as an organizer, and also, I don't know, yours, I don't know if there should be some kind of like official Netherlands e-science center representation, or if that's kind of through RISA? And since you
No,
were hosting, did all that, I don't know.
Yeah, well, we started off, but I mean that doesn't imply that we would need to be on the governance. Could be, but that isn't something on my mind necessarily. Right. So it's more that the eScience Center feels that it's represented by RISA.
Okay.
And that RISA should be on such a committee. Yeah.
So, one, Andrew, I guess what we were just talking about was potentially having some kind of a shepherding committee at this point until there's something that actually would be signed, and then having representatives from that signing that have signed, but also having some representatives from RISA.
So what's the process going to be for? Well, I know what the process is going to be for soliciting input. What's the process going to be for dealing with that input? Like at the comment stage on the current draft.
I think it's going to be similar to what we've done at this point, which is that probably the four of us would try to respond to that and do the next draft.
Okay, so what role is the shepherding committee performing? Or is the shepherding committee?
Well, that's a good question. No, it isn't. Yeah, so maybe we'd be transitioning gradually.
Yeah, and I think it's partly that it's almost like the shepherding committee in my mind is it's the group that's just there to ensure that what is put in place for the governance actually meets the needs of all of the different stakeholders for Adorn software.
Oh, okay, so it's just the governance once the declaration has been finalized.
Yeah, so we kind of
okay.
want to make sure that we don't get to that point and then not have an understanding of what the governance is.
Yeah, no,
So,
that's
yeah.
all right. That makes sense.
And it would be useful to get their input into the writing as well.
Mhm.
But formally, I guess my feeling is that those people don't necessarily need to be directly involved in cranking out the new iterations.
Yes, yeah,
Um,
okay, right. That's helpful.
So yeah, so it's almost like having an interim governance to make sure that you get to your formal governance at the same time as you get to your version 1.
Yeah.
I'm fairly sure the same thing happened with things like RDA and so on, that there were definitely some people who had a bigger role to play because they were the ones who had an interest in doing it.
Oh yeah,
So,
absolutely. And it's
And
helpful. I agree that then there's the need for loose coordination to make sure that the governance arrangements that are being developed are aligned with the kinds of statements that the declaration itself is making. So personally, I would be fine with the Gang of Four continuing to deal with the editing process, the commenting, responding, including process. So I guess the question is the shepherding committee the thing that's building the governance that we put in place a subset of this group, or do we pull in other people?
I think it would pull in other people.
Yeah, okay, that was my comment.
It would be likely to sign like some representatives, some funders.
Okay.
My concern is that it should not actually just be solely drawn from
Mhm.
RISA steering.
No,
committee,
that's a good point. That
it
makes
should
sense.
Have some representation from RISA
Mhm.
as the stewards for it, but then some from the more willing funders.
So someone, I don't know, Joris, like Maria Cruz in the new role in NVO might be a possibility.
That would be a good example. Yeah, somebody like that. Yeah.
Somebody like that. I mean, I'm not saying her in particular, but that kind of role. Yeah.
So Mark, just to do this kind of quickly as we're running out of time, what we're, I think, proposing for governance, I guess what Neil actually started proposing for governance, I think we've kind of mostly come to agree with, is that for comments on the document itself, the four of us that have been working on it will continue to take those and work on those. For governance, we would try to have some kind of an interim shepherding committee that would include a couple of people from RISA and then maybe a couple of funders that seem likely to sign to design what the governance should be. And so that when we get to the final document, that's clear and it's not something that will be surprising to the funders.
Right.
Does that seem?
Sounds good.
Yep. Don't surprise the funders is a good thing.
Okay, so in our remaining 5 minutes, do we have any other things that anyone would like to talk about? Information sharing, any other business?
I mean, I guess the only other, the comment I would make for you, Joris, given that you couldn't be at this event, was there was a heck of a lot of software, given it was a Research Data Alliance event. It was a,
Okay, that's good to hear.
right, well, it was surprising.
I also had an awful lot more questions about why software was at RDA. Not in the sort of like a why it shouldn't be at RDA,
Right.
but like, what was the difference between RESA and RDA
Yeah,
and sort of
I
things like
think
that?
Which
Which,
not a question for 1 minute, but I think it's a really
No.
important question.
Right, yeah, so let's,
An RDA person hearing about RESA is likely to think RESA is the same as RDA.
Yeah, we're gonna have to scoot.
okay, thank you, Joris.
All right, thank you, Joris.
Yeah, thank you. Enjoy your dinner and give my regards to Maaike, who will be joining you on my behalf. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Oh, Mike de Jong,
Maaike de Jong. Yeah, right. Yeah, she should be there.
apparently, he's stunned Joris.
I did get had a conversation with